Welcome, shouters, to this episode of the Go Shout Love podcast. My name is Seth Parnell, and we are talking to Kyle and Lindsey McCarthy. They are the parents of James, who has an extremely rare mutation of the CNT-NAP1 gene. And James is one of the 5 incredible kids we are featuring this month from Southern California. There is so much to love about James and his parents, and so much to shout love for. And in this, you will hear how they weren't prepared or had any clue about James's condition going into the day he was born. This episode is unique, not simply because James' condition is extremely rare, but Kyle and Lindsey generously open up about their journey with a lot of sincerity and vulnerability. In this interview, you will hear from Kyle, Lindsey, myself, and Jessica Santo, our family relations director and gifted photographer. Also, to keep helping us shout love, please rate and review this podcast on Apple Podcasts. Now, here is Lindsey talking about how rare James' condition is.
We were told by the geneticist that there's less than 20 people in the world that have it, which I kind of feel like is a good thing and a bad thing. It's you're not sure how to feel about it, but part of me is thankful because we don't really know what the future is, but then part of me is also scared of that because the information that we do know on it isn't very positive. The geneticist, when she told us, said, please don't Google this, please don't look it up. And we were kind of just left there dumbfounded, like how did this happen? Why did it happen? And my husband and I just both happen to be recessive carriers of this gene. And then
what do you guys think has been your biggest roadblock with James?
I would say just when you're dealing with the doctors, they don't necessarily know everything, or they also don't have a child or have ever experienced caring for someone with this rare disorder.
They can't tell you at a year old he's going to be able to do X, Y, and Z, and he will not be able to do this. And they can't tell us anything. And so everything that they read is online, but guess what? They're so busy that they don't read it online themselves. And so Kyle and I end up coming in and educating them on everything going on.
Yeah. They could tell you scientifically what the disorder means, but they can't answer all your questions about things that he does, things he doesn't do, all the little things that you recognize as a parent. And so you really just have to take what they're saying and kind of listen and take it for what it's worth, but then also do your own research and kind of just like trust your own gut.
Yeah, trust that you know best for your son.
Exactly.
Absolutely. And then I found 4 other families on Facebook whose children have this diagnosis.
In the United States?
No. So one's in Michigan, 2 are in the UK, and 1 is in Denmark. So
how did you find them?
Actually, my friend Vanessa, who submitted the story here, she's a very good detective, and she found
one. And a good friend.
Vanessa is the one who nominated James to Go Shout Love. So.
And so she found the one in Michigan, and then I reached out to her, and then the mom there led me to the group that I'm now in, and they're like the most supportive, helpful people.
How does James compare to those other kids?
They're all extremely different from each other.
They are.
Mm-hmm. 4 out of the 5 have trachs. So one of them doesn't even have a trach, which is crazy to me. One's on a ventilator. So it's just one's able to use a stander and other one isn't. So it's every single one is so different. Each gene mutation is so different.
There's like literally no way to measure this journey.
No.
Like no frame of reference. You're kind of just guessing as you go.
According to the textbooks, according to the research that they've done, I know the average lifespan is supposed to be 7 months, and James has already outlived that, and so have all the other kids that are in this group. I know the oldest child with it that I saw in my reading was 12 years old.
So there's been papers that have been written on this and things from doctors that have seen cases like this, and they kind of just write their findings. Like, oh, we saw a child with this, we saw this. And they kind of just state the facts, but it's not necessarily like, oh, and here's why we think
there's no conclusion. It's just literally facts written on a paper about what they saw.
And a lot of the data is on children that have already passed. And so then they are able to say, they lived for 3 days or however many days. And I think that when they do the biopsy or whatever, they figure out, oh, this child had this mutation. This is why. Because I feel like had we not had that genetic, the DNA samples from all three of us, there's no way we would have found out so early what he had. And the doctors were all making different guesses as to what it could possibly be. But I'm thinking for a baby to pass away who doesn't have a trach, like it could just be like respiratory failure. You know, I'm wondering how many kids are there out there that actually do have this, but because they pass away so fast, maybe it just goes undiagnosed. You know, I'm so curious to find that out. And obviously there's no way of finding out. I just wonder, you know, there has to be more out there.
Right. There has to, yeah. You wonder if they could add that to the genetic testing. If you guys
there was
could.
in utero testing, then
how can that get added to a?
I think it's so rare it never will.
And I think it's really
unless
expensive.
we find a ton more. Which, please come find us. I would love to talk to you.
It's really expensive, from what I understand.
Are there any signs or symptoms in utero?
No, my pregnancy was completely healthy. He was born full term, 39 weeks, 2 days. I was perfectly healthy my entire pregnancy. He had hiccups in my tummy, which the doctors were like stunned by, because apparently hiccups in your tummy when you're pregnant are supposed to be a sign of like healthy lung development. That's what one of the NICU doctors told us. So they were pretty surprised.
So you had no clue of any...
No clue until he was born and they pulled him away from me. So, I mean, and then we're thinking we got all that genetic testing done. Like, we have nothing to worry about. Then now I'm like, thank God it was just my husband and I in that delivery room, because it was traumatizing. It was the worst night of my life, that like, I can't imagine anyone else being in that room and having that shock of, oh my God, what is happening to my child, and, you know, everything. So, it's just crazy. I wish they would test for all this stuff. I wish that we were prepared, and obviously we got on board really fast because we love our son and we're going to do absolutely everything we can to support him and help him grow. But had we had 6 months to try to prepare ourselves for what the delivery room would look like or what our new life would look like, I mean, that would have been helpful if we even had 2 weeks to do it, you know. But I
can't imagine finding out in that moment.
I had extra ultrasounds done because, of course, it's my first kid and I want to see him as much as I possibly can. So we would go actually on my birthday and we got like a 3D ultrasound done, and I was seeing him and he was growing at a great rate. I didn't have anything going on.
Measurements and everything's normal. So Lindsey and I both stayed in the NICU 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for a month while we were there with James.
I recovered from labor there.
No.
Yeah, she got there so he was delivered at 6 p.m. on January 5th, and she was there the very next day by like 12 or 1 o'clock.
So you were taken to the hospital and Lindsey wasn't.
Yeah, so
how was that?
I made him.
How was that for you?
It was intense, but you know, you just have to be there. Like, someone needs to be by his side, and she can't. You know, she's recovering, so you just need to go in the ambulance and be there. And then just like, I remember shooting a video and sending it to her once we got to the hospital up at the children's hospital, and like showing her like, he's safe, he's fine. You know, here's the monitors, all that.
So you guys were processing a lot of this separately. That had to be tough.
Yeah. I mean, I spent the night in the hospital. My dad stayed with me. But I didn't really sleep. If I would sleep, I would wake up. My pillow was like completely covered just in tears, because I was just like crying the whole time. Because how do you go from, God, this is the best moment of my life, I'm having my baby, I've been waiting 10 months to meet him, and I've been seeing all these ultrasounds, and oh my gosh, like, we were just married, we had just had our honeymoon baby, like this was our dream, we were so excited, and then literally within seconds it's completely taken away from you. And then as a mom, you see your baby being taken away from you, and then your husband says, what do I do? And what do you do as a mom? You say, go be with the baby. Like, that was like the first moment that I learned like what it means to be a mom and not to put my needs first. And I needed him with every ounce of my body to be with James, because for the first time I couldn't protect him. I couldn't do anything. He was so safe in my tummy, you know, and then the second that he's born, I can't do anything anymore, you know? So
if you could tell that mom that you were at that moment, if you could go back and tell yourself something now, what would you tell yourself?
Honestly, I don't know, because I'm still working through, I think that night, it was so traumatic.
And it's still new. I mean,
It's only a year, but it's like, it was just not what either one of us had ever pictured or thought was going to happen. And to have, alarms going off and my husband like running over to the baby and then running back to me and me yelling at him, go with the baby, go with the baby. And then I actually went to go see James because I didn't get to see him after he was born. They put him on my tummy and immediately took him off. So I didn't see him at all because right when they put him on the tummy, all the nurses are there trying to clean him and do everything. So I didn't even know what he looked like. So Kyle went to the NICU nursery at the hospital, took a picture and brought it back to me. And I said, I have to see him. And my doctor was so amazing. She's like, we're going to get you in there. So she went to go get me a wheelchair. And she's like, are you sure you can do it? Because I had an epidural. And I'm like, I can do it. Like, I can do it. I need to see my baby. And I went to go sit in the wheelchair and I actually passed out. So I came to with the smelling salt. And then my doctor, amazing doctor, is like, I'm going to figure it out. And she came back 5 minutes later with a bed with wheels on it. So that way I could just get wheeled into the NICU to meet my son. And we have our first picture as a family in that little NICU with me laying on the bed. And it's really painful. And at the same time, it's hard because everyone's like, yeah, but it must have been such a great day. You got to meet him. And I'm like, I'm just not there yet. Like it was
that's such a powerful statement. I'm just not there yet.
And I say yeah, because I know one day I will.
Yeah.
I know one day I will embrace it and all that it is. But in my mind, I still hear the sirens going off. I still hear the nurses yelling at each other because it was just frantic in there. And the hospital that I delivered at, that stuff doesn't happen there. Like the director came to me later because my sister ended up delivering in the exact same room 3 months later. And I was there for that. And the director came to me and was like, hey, I know you. I remember you because this never happens here. How is your son? And so I got to talk to them about it. And I mean, the good news is everyone remembers James. He's very memorable. But I would like for them to all get to know him for who he is now because he's a fighter. He's huge, And actually, what's so funny is that night that he was born, they had intubated him, and 3 times he had pulled out the tube that they had put in. Like he was just like, nope, not having it. And it was like,
which he doesn't move, so he's not supposed to like be aware.
Like that's not going to be me. I'm going to
So for me and Kyle, we kind of look at it as like that was his personality from the very beginning was I'm a fighter. I'm going to fight this and I'm going to show you how strong I am. Because we get to the NICU and all the doctors were like, what do you mean? He pulled out his tube. Like there's no way. Look at him. And we're like, he did it 3 times. I don't know what to tell you, So it's just interesting. We learned a lot about him that night. We learned a lot about each other that night.
If he really doesn't want you to do something, I mean, he lets you know. Like, he has his personality. And so while it's very difficult for him to move, and when people are testing him and, giving him all the different tests they do to see him, how he hears and how he sees and everything like that, he doesn't seem interested. But then the second, he's comfortable and you try and get him to do something, he'll be like, nope, don't want to do that, So,
yeah.
So in a time when there's a lot of heartbreak and a lot of things to try to understand, describe to us a positive, a good win in this journey.
Leaving the NICU, that was huge because we didn't know what our future was really going to look like. And at that point, we had stayed there every second of the day. The nurses were like, go on a date, go out. This is going to be the last time you guys can do that. And we're like, we can't do that. What are you talking about? We can't leave our boy.
How long were you guys in the NICU again?
Just about a month.
A month.
Yeah.
We got home. So he was born January 5th, and we got home the Friday before the Super Bowl, which was
Kyle's an Eagles fan, and he told the doctor that he wanted to come home for the Super Bowl because the Eagles were playing.
Well, and at that point, we had been living in the NICU, living in a hospital where it's just a crazy schedule. We had really both embraced caring for him, and so we knew everything how to care for him. We felt confident in it, and the doctors had already ran every test they could and couldn't give us any answers. So I didn't really see any more need to be in the hospital setting. So,
but one of my favorite memories from the hospital, which is so weird now that I look back, because we were so terrified to have him have his tracheostomy and his G-tube surgery. But the moment that they wheeled him in and he finally didn't have like all the tape all over his face and the tubes all over his face and everything, I just like broke down and I looked at Kyle and I said, oh my God, he is so cute. Because it was the first time that you could like really see his face.
Like a month after he's born.
Mm-hmm. And it was 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Mm-hmm. It was the first time you could really see his face, see those cute little puffy cheeks and just see all of him, that I looked at Kyle and I was like, God, he's cute. And then it was like, we knew that we did the right decision.
What do you got?
I'm just soaking this all in. Usually I'm the one that's like...
I'm curious, for the Super Bowl, did you have him in an Eagles outfit?
He was too small. He was really
too
small. And so it was so
He
funny.
weighed a lot less when we came home because of all the surgeries. He was not eating before. And then he actually had really bad reflux too. And so he was losing weight. And so when he came home, we were like, what does he wear? And he was always just naked in the hospital, that we're like, oh.
We had him, when we look back at some of the pictures, he was like swimming in like newborn clothes. But no, he did watch the game with me.
He had green
Who's your
socks
little good
on.
luck charm?
And
Villanova. Kyle went to Villanova, and Villanova won that year too for basketball.
Yeah, so.
Nick Foles, if you're listening. It's all because of James.
Right.
As a team, we really love introducing the world to families like this. So that is why we sell creative apparel, and half of all those proceeds go directly to the families. So please go to our website at GoShout.love and purchase a t-shirt, a mug, a hat, or more, and all of that will help purchase a specialty chair for James and help pay down some of his medical bills not covered by insurance. You can also start a monthly subscription and shout love for great families each month. Please use the discount code PODCAST at checkout to save $5 on your first order when you start a subscription. Again, that's $5 off your first month with the discount code PODCAST at checkout. I guess being ignorant with his diagnosis, like what would you like to see for his future?
You're not ignorant, first of all. And I'm a former teacher, so I'm like, no, you're not.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. Cool.
Don't puff his head up.
For his future, honestly, I mean, if I'm really, really, really being honest, I try not to think too far out in advance because I don't know what it looks like and I don't want to get ahead of myself and I don't want to be disappointed. I think I've learned, like, when he first came home, I was like, well, maybe he'll move more. Maybe his vocal cords will start to work again, you know, because those are able to improve. And maybe stuff will change. And it's like, instead I try to just live in the moment and I try to just really appreciate today and what he is doing today. Because the other thing with his disability is some days we have good days, other days are going to be really bad. Sometimes the myelin's working really well. And you know, for 2 weeks and then maybe the next week, it's just not improving as well. So I try to just focus on daily tasks. I try to really work on building up his strength in his neck because I know that that's really important for him for a wheelchair, for standing if he ends up having a stander or anything like that. But even just sitting in a car seat or, you know, it's just different things. So I try to focus on that. And we are trying right now to have him learn how to choose with his eyes. So hopefully one day he can maybe use an eye gaze computer. Mm-hmm. So we usually like hold up two toys, or like Daddy today, when he was getting him dressed, he held up two different shirts and said, okay, James, which one do you want to wear? And James looked at that one shirt. So that's why he's wearing that shirt today.
Oh, I like that a lot.
I think prior to James, you know, just like probably every new parent, you have expectations and like what you visualize like your life to be like. And one of the main things he's taught us is, or at least taught me, is to just not put my expectations on him. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of just, you know, we don't know, as Lindsey was saying, you know, what the future holds. And so it's really take it day by day. And when we receive information from doctors, I don't want to say we don't listen to it or we don't, you know, appreciate it, but it's kind of like, okay, that's their opinion. Yeah. And because it's so rare, I guess we have the fortune of saying, well, that's just their opinion. And there's really, you know, no proven science behind that's going to be James, because they don't have thousands of cases where they say, oh, this is stage 1, stage 2, here's what's going to happen. And the people that work with him on a daily basis, like his therapist, they see tremendous growth. So I don't necessarily need the
gives you a lot of
doctors. It does. And they see, oh my gosh, he's starting to do this. They see progression. They see development, where I don't need the doctors that see him once every 3 months and for that short period of time in their office, when they only see a little small window of what he's presenting to them, to tell me, what my child can and can't do.
What has been your favorite thing to see in your husband on this journey? What has he done that has made you so proud as his wife?
I think that Kyle, I knew, would always be an amazing dad. That was like, you have your little checklist in your head of what you want your future husband to be. And I feel like Kyle was always so great with my nieces and just with his nephews and nieces. And I always saw that side of him, that he's just so loving and so amazing, that I'm like, he's got that one. But then to go through everything that we have and to be as supportive as he is with me and with James, and for him to stand by our side, I think that a lot of people, it would be really easy to kind of like walk away and focus on work, because right now he's the sole provider, which I definitely appreciate. So I can go to all the meetings and all the appointments and all the therapies, and I can really be there to advocate for him. But I think that Kyle does his best to try to, if he can't come to all the meetings, if he can't come to the therapies, every day after I leave, he calls. How did it go? What did his therapist say this week? And we go to therapy every week, multiple times a week, or we go to doctor's appointments every week, and it's like, no matter what, Kyle, if he can't be there, it's like, give me an update, what's going on. And he's just really, really supportive and really amazing and thoughtful and so loving. And it is like the sweetest thing to see the bond that they have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see it right now.
I mean, I know that everyone always says like, oh, they love their mommy and they know who their mommy is, like right off the bat. But I'm telling you, from the moment James was born, he knew who his dad was.
I think he knows if he stays over there that we'll keep complimenting him.
I can't wait for you to make me feel good.
No, I'm
just kidding.
Okay, so it's your turn to compliment
Yeah.
your wife. No, we were talking
It's
about
like our anniversary all over again.
how this has just been kind of a whirlwind for your marriage. You guys are newlyweds, and she was saying how good of a dad you are to James, and she knew that you would always be a good dad. But what is probably the proudest trait? How do I question that?
No, you're doing great.
Am I doing an okay job? What are you the most proud of when you think of your wife?
Well, definitely her strength. I mean, as Lindsay was saying, you have all those boxes that you check off when you're looking for a partner and a future mother or father. And Lindsay is a former teacher, and so I knew that she would be good with children and things like that. And just seeing her interact with children, I knew she'd be a good mother. But the strength that she has shown just throughout this past year is something that is desperately needed for our family, because she's strong when I can't be, and hopefully vice versa. But it's one of those things that I always tell people, because they see you in a situation with your child, and the natural reaction for people is to say, oh, I don't think I could do that. I don't think I could ever do that. And the true answer is you probably could, because no one thinks they could do it.
Mm-hmm. But when you're
you
faced
do
with
it.
You do it.
Right?
Because you love him.
Yeah. So
He's a big teddy bear.
I know. Now you know why I married him.
You're very sweet. You guys can tell that you have a lot of love for James. And oh my gosh, look
Now
at that
he's
smile!
Oh, look at that.
Oh, what a sweetie.
Oh, that's amazing.
See, but now, because he doesn't smile very often, when he does, aren't you just like, that was the best?
So sweet.
See 2 or 3 times a week when he does smile for them, everyone like stops what they're doing, like, look at James, everyone.
Oh.
It's so sweet.
Well, thank you guys so much for.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
We know that we dig deep with these questions, and we really appreciate you sharing. And we hope that this can reach a family with a new diagnosis or a new mom in that hospital room. So
Yeah.
We appreciate your vulnerability and your honesty, because we like to think that speaks to people who are maybe just starting on this journey, or who maybe haven't had like the Facebook communities or something.
Well, and we've only been doing it for a year. I'm still figuring it out, to be completely honest with you.
We've got a lot of amazing moms to introduce you to.
Yeah. Well, but what I've noticed through this whole thing is that small little support group of the 4 other families whose kids have this diagnosis, I have leaned on them so much. And even if it's just like, hey, how's your day today? Or what's so-and-so doing today?
Do you talk to them every day?
I try to talk to them every couple of weeks. We're all really, really busy because of all of our kids. They're so medically complex. But I feel like because they've just been so amazing where they will say like, email me when you want, like I'm here, you know, and I can answer whatever question. I can tell you where we're coming from, or this is what we're working on. And here's what has worked for us. And here's what hasn't worked for us. Mm-hmm. And it really gives me motivation to try to be like that for other families. And I want to help. I'm like, gosh, I feel like now I just need to like go down a whole new path. Now I understand why like social workers at hospitals, like all of their kids used to be hospital kids, you know, because I'm just like, I just have this like desire to like meet all of these families, and I want to help other people, and I want to let them know that it's okay. And you're going to have horrible days, and you're going to have days that you cry a lot, and you're going to have days that you fight with your husband, and you're going to have days that you feel like you can't do it anymore. But you come out of it a year later and it's possible. The first night we came home with him, I cried my eyes out, and I looked at Kyle and said, what did we do? Because it was just overwhelming. And it's like, now I look at it, and Kyle and I talk about it all the time. Do you remember that night we came home? Because it was like, what were we so scared of? But it was just so overwhelming, and all of those feelings attached to that. It's just like, we're in over our head. But it's like, I have to tell people, yes, it's overwhelming, but it'll get better, and he's worth it.
He is very worth it.
You know?
Yeah.
Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please go and rate us on Apple Podcasts. Give us a good rating so we can continue to shout love. And also, do not forget to use the discount code PODCAST for your first month subscription. That will give you $5 off at checkout. And until next time, please keep shouting love.